Hello, Budget Committee. My name is Mary Bridget Smith. I work as the City Attorney for the City of Springfield. I'm here to provide some information about legal services for the City of Springfield for FY25. I'll provide information about the City Attorney's Office and the type of work we do, our budget for the coming year. Then I'm going to shift into summarizing our accomplishments for FY24 and then looking forward to what we're anticipating in FY25 and in future years. Before I get started on the substantive part of this presentation, I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge your work as the Budget Committee and your assistance with this process, and to reiterate that the City Attorney's Office values our opportunity to serve the City of Springfield. Looking at this next slide, this is a summary of our department services. So you'll see that our main purpose is to advise the city on how to stay compliant with the law and also prevent liability. We are general advisors to the city and not necessarily litigators. So for example, we may hire someone to help with special projects, and general liability claims are handled by City County Insurance Services. That's a statewide insurance pool who represents most cities in Oregon. We're appointed by the council, which is something a little different than other departments. We're also a small department. We have one city attorney, an assistant city attorney, and then a legal assistant. Part of our duties also include managing the prosecutor's contract. The prosecution contract is handled by an outside firm called Leahy Cox. They represent the City of Springfield for misdemeanor prosecutions in Springfield Municipal Court. Those cases mainly are things like DUI or shoplifting, and it is an important part of services to the city. This slide is about our budget summary in the previous budget years and upcoming FY25. CAO, City Attorney's Office, does not have any anticipated changes for the office in the coming year in terms of FTE, so we'll have our same 3 full-time employees. For our materials and services, part of our budget was essentially our overhead. You can see that there has been some variation in the previous years. That's because we have had a limited duration revenue account as part of our objection and lawsuit against the state for what we call CFEC, which is an acronym for Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities. That's a set of land use laws that came down from the state to tackle climate change and equity. And while the City of Springfield is certainly not objecting to those policy objectives, we did object to the way those rules were done, and the substance of those rules is not being workable for local governments. So we joined with 13 other jurisdictions to appeal those rules. At the time of this recording, we actually just got a decision, and we'll be going to the council to determine if they would like to move forward with the appeal. The majority of the costs have been spent in this matter at the Court of Appeals level, and we'll have more information in the coming weeks about next steps. The other part of our materials and services budget is the cost of the prosecutor's contract. So the prosecution contract is will be starting the last of 3 years in this coming fiscal year, and we're looking forward to negotiating a new contract. We spent some time seeing what other jurisdictions do for their prosecution services to see if that can inform our negotiations moving forward. Now I'm going to shift into our accomplishments over the past year. So for FY24, our accomplishments really centered on economic development, CFEC, which I just mentioned, reform around Measure 110, which was the decriminalization of drug use in Oregon, and then a lot of work around comprehensive planning, which is more long-range planning for the city, and then housing. You'll also see as we work through these slides that many of these accomplishments and initiatives for future years overlap, because really our key initiatives are things that take more than 1 year to accomplish. So looking at economic development, most of that work has to do with the Urban Renewal Agency, and we also represent the Urban Renewal Agency. It's a really exciting time to be working at Glenwood projects right now. They're doing planning. As you know, we've selected a developer, and then long-range master planning for that area, and sort of last property acquisitions to assemble all of those properties. The master planning process is really what phases in to make a plan for what the development will look like and how it will work. Other areas of urban renewal that we worked on would be the downtown urban renewal agency area, and a lot of property acquisition in that area, trying to kind of build on the success that downtown already has. In terms of CFAC, I explained earlier that case, we just got an answer in that case. We'll see if the council wants to move forward with an appeal or if we will just be dealing with how to address the decision and the planning implications moving forward. Measure 110, reform was really an interesting project we got to work on this year. That had to do with the decriminalization ballot initiative that was passed a few years ago in Oregon. The City Council really wanted to make a policy stand about the impacts that law had had on our community, while still staying true to the idea that we would support funding for treatment. So our office really was able to partner with the police department and with the city manager's legislative analyst to provide information about what 110 has meant here in the city of Springfield, and then also an ordinance about drug use on public property, and then assisting as that issue kind of made its way through the legislative session, making sure that there was input from Springfield, and it was really satisfying to be able to work on that type of project. The last area, comprehensive planning and housing, I put those together, although I think they're similar legal representation, but they're different topics. In housing, we'd finished up some work on the illegal camping ordinance as was mandated by the state. And then also really interesting issues about how to spend some funding that we have had from the state government through COVID relief about providing housing, particularly for folks that are unhoused or homeless. And then comprehensive planning, this is interesting area for us because the city did a lot of long-range planning this past fiscal year, whether it was for stormwater or the comprehensive plan map project. And what that means for us is really a lot of process through planning commission and city council, reviewing ordinances, assisting with attachments and the procedure to make sure that that goes through in a way that does not get appealed. Looking at FY25 initiatives, we're really thinking that we're going to see a lot more consistent work here with economic development, liability prevention and claim response, and the prosecutor contract. So kind of taking the last one first, as I mentioned, it's the last year the prosecutor contract will have to line up for future negotiations for that contract. Liability prevention and claim response, this is something that we're always looking at, but in particular we still do have some outstanding lawsuits and we'll be assisting those litigators on representing the city. And then economic development, moving forward on the Glenwood project through master planning and other aspects of that project. And then also with our downtown urban renewal agency, helping with the next phase of continuing the development downtown. And looking at future considerations for the next 3 to 5 years, I think that we're going to spend a lot of time on economic development as the Glenwood project progresses from master planning into actual development agreements, infrastructure planning, and implementation. I also think there will be some work in the downtown urban renewal area to address the property acquisition and building on the success of downtown. There still will be some work with liability prevention, as there always is, to try and assure that we avoid liability, whether that's through implementing new policies, providing information about new laws, and making sure that the city is acting in a way that's compliant with the law. Equity is something that is thread through all of our projects. I don't think we have a specific equity project that we're looking at in the next 3 to 5 years, but keeping it top of mind for projects, particularly liability prevention, housing, climate regulation, and economic development, to make sure that we're thinking about making sure that Springfield is a community that is welcoming to all people and that we are addressing equity as we're working through these substantive issues here at the city. Housing, I think, is another area where we're going to see a pickup in work in sort of future years. There will be some more rulemaking coming from the state for housing inventory and housing production strategy that I think will hit the cities about FY26 and then moving forward. And then climate regulation. This is an area where both state and federal government are engaged, and I think there will just be more work for local governments to enact or assist to enact some legislation coming from higher levels of government. This is my last slide for the presentation. It contains our contact information. I have appreciated the opportunity to present to you tonight about legal services at the City of Springfield, and be more than happy to speak with any of you about our process or if you have any questions about our budget. Thank you for your attention.